Hello，大家好，我係 Marguerite and welcome to my little Cantonese corner. 今日2020年4月11號星期六. Today it is Saturday, the 11th of April, 2020, and yes, I'm still in the United States waiting to get back to Hong Kong, where I've lived for 30 years. But in 30 years in Hong Kong, I can count on one hand the number of local friends that I have in Hong Kong. Good friends. I have a lot of people that I work with that I know. We're acquaintances, we're friendly. But if you're talking about really close friends or good friends, not that many, considering I think I'm pretty an outgoing person and pretty friendly. But there is something about making friends with locals in Hong Kong that seems to confuzzle a lot of expats that move to Hong Kong. And I'm actually doing this video because I was on one of the expat Facebook groups, and this was one of the questions, and somebody had said, I'm trying to make friends with locals, but I'm finding it really difficult. And so I thought, oh, maybe I can shed some light on why that is over my 30 years of experience in living in a bunch of different places in Hong Kong and having a lot of different types of friends, working in a lot of different companies. And so I thought I'll do a short video on that. Now, my number one reason I think for why expat people that come to Hong Kong, and again, expats can be anybody. I mean, anybody with a desire to make friends with a local Hong Kong person will find difficulties. And my number one reason, I'll tell you what it is, and then I'm going to go back and explain a few more things, is expat Western people who grow up overseas are interested typically in a whole range of different things. And they'll get together and have book clubs, or they'll just get together over coffee and chat about a whole myriad of topics that range from politics to a great book they've read, movies they've seen, different things like that. And they'll really get into a discussion for the sake of discussing something. And maybe you'll learn something from it. Maybe you'll just de-stress and relax from it, or something like that. It's much more of a broad perspective. For local Hong Kong people, I've found that they typically are much more narrow-minded and focused on the practical. This is something that there's no good or bad to this, of course, realize. There's no good or bad, or else I wouldn't be in Hong Kong and I wouldn't have local friends. But it's different. It's the focus is very much more focused on practical things, on what kids are doing in school, how difficult school is, how the job is, money, things of that nature that are very practical. And they don't really, when I get together with my local friends, we don't generally talk about things that won't directly impact us. So there's not a lot of time wasted. There's not a lot of effort or energy wasted. And that's one of the things that makes Hong Kong so amazing. I think most people will agree. When you move to Hong Kong, it's very efficient. It's very straightforward. Things get done quickly, very direct. I mean, you might not like how direct it is sometimes when they're talking about what you look like or that kind of thing, which if you've lived in Hong Kong, and you will have experienced that at some point. But that aside, it's very direct, convenient, and it is a super great place to live and work. But the downside of that is that if you're trying to make friends and you're saying, hey, come on over to my place, we're just going to hang out, I think the first thought they'll be thinking is, why do I want to do that? I have 5, 10, 15 different things I'm trying to accomplish and get done that need to get done. And not that I don't like you, not that I wouldn't want to have that kind of freedom or that kind of, well, when I say freedom, I mean freedom from the practicalities of life to get through. But, I mean, it's not going to be quite common that you're going to find that's going to work. So if you want to make friends with local Hong Kong people, I would suggest that you focus on practical things. If your kids are in school and their kids are in school, and that's your common connection, then it would be kind of like how much you hate something about school. Because a lot of times, I remember when my kids had just gotten into primary one, and it was, I just despaired. It was terrible because we'd go out to these dinners with other couples that had kids in similar situations, and the moms would just group together, and all they would talk about was the studying, the pressure, the time they had to spend. They'd work all day. They'd get home. They had to sit with their kids. They had to, review, revision constantly. And to a Western person, and possibly if your kids are in international schools, you don't face that kind of pressure. You cannot relate to that kind of pressure until you're under it. And even from my experience, when my kids were at the local school, it was, my attitude was like, do your best, but that's not what other people are, that's not what they're hearing at school. That is not what they're getting from their parents or at home. It's like, what do you mean your best? You're just going to do it until you get, the best, like 100. And, your best is doing that. I mean, if your best is 70, I don't accept that. I don't accept that. You've got to be doing, the 100 level mark work. So that's, you can kind of relate to them on that level if that's what you're facing. If you are coming at it from a work situation, well, work's a whole different ballgame. If you're working in an office, you might find it to be really frustrating. Now, this might be just because I work in a very large organization. And so it could be a factor of just when you work in a big company, the dynamics are different, right? Than if you work in a small entrepreneurial kind of one man show. But I'm talking about an office where you have different departments and you've got your cubicle or your desk or something like that, not a restaurant or a school or anything like that, although some things may apply. So what I think about that is that a lot of times there's no face-to-face confrontation either, which I find quite interesting because there's no problem telling you that, oh, you look really sick today, or wow, you're so pale, or are you sick? Did you gain weight? Oh, you look fat. I mean, there's no problem at all with coming right out and saying that to your face. But if it has something to do with the way you're working, something that they don't like, then typically it will be a roundabout way. And they won't directly tell you what you're doing is wrong or what you're doing is not. It's not like that. It's not like going to somebody and saying like, hey, I've got a problem with the way you're doing this. But let me go back now and define what local is, because there are a lot of different types when you say a local Hong Kong person. Now, in Hong Kong, you've got local Hong Kong people, born and raised in Hong Kong, local school all the way, never lived or studied abroad, and may not ever have expat friends. So they view expats kind of from a distance. They live in the mid-levels. Well, if you're American, you live in Taitam, or you live on the south side, Stanley, Repulse Bay. Um, Definitely mid-levels, and even now getting into Saingpon and Kennedy Town that way. Quarry Bay has become another kind of big bastion of expat life, although a newer kind of area. Discovery Bay, of course. Llama Island is its own kind of thing, but those different types of places, they typically don't live there. I mean, they're going to be living in, Sha Tin, Ma Shan. They're going to be living in the new territories out there. They will be living, I mean, they could live anywhere, really. I mean, it's not like there's different districts for different people, but typically the expats tend to congregate in certain areas, and your local friends probably don't live there, probably don't visit there, probably never go there. I know even for me, living on the Kowloon side and in the new territories for quite a while, it was kind of, I don't want to say intimidating, but going to Pacific Place and Admiralty and some of these places, yeah, I felt I had to like dress up or look a little bit different than if you're living out in Chunwan or living out in, Tuen Mun or some of these places where it's, it's the suburbs kind of, not suburbs, but it's the new territories. It's a bit different of an atmosphere, a different feel than you get if you live in Repulse Bay and you're commuting to Admiralty and that's your path, what you travel. I think if that's you, or if you live in the mid-levels and never leave Hong Kong Island, then yeah, you don't really have a lot in common with somebody who's making the 45 1-hour commute in from the new territories. And, and then you're trying to say, hey, come over to my place and we'll hang out. And it just doesn't, it doesn't match. So that's one type of local. Born in Hong Kong, raised in Hong Kong, never lived, never been overseas, may have traveled, but kind of view it at a distance. Then you have locals in Hong Kong who have gone to international schools, and they may have a bigger understanding. Maybe they speak English better. Um, uh, Maybe they, although it's not necessarily about the language, but it does afford you the opportunity to get to know a culture better if you speak it and you actually watch like British or American TV shows. It might you might have a better understanding, and also the interest. I mean, you're showing interest in getting to know them, and they likewise, if they're showing interest in getting to know an expat culture kind of thing, then obviously that helps a lot. So that's your other type of local. I think it's fascinating, the differences. And I think it all boils down to respect. I actually wrote a book. I will make a small plug for my book. I'll put a picture of it up here. And I wrote this kid's book a couple years ago and put it on Amazon. And it's all about respect, keeping an open mind, listening, and learning. And I think if you can do that with anybody in life, then you're going to go pretty far. And the first thing is to respect. Like, respect the fact that they are different. And sometimes when we try to make friends, I know I do, I approach it as like, what do I like? What am I like? What do I kind of like all focused on how I am. And I just expect everyone's going to be like that. But respecting the, where they're coming from and maybe their living situation, because as an expat in Hong Kong, you're probably living on your own or with one other person, and it's or your family, of course, but it's a completely different situation if you're a local person who again hasn't been outside or lived elsewhere. They probably live with their family. They probably live with their grandparents. The level of responsibility that they have is much greater than what you may have if you're living on your own in Hong Kong. So just that level of responsibility and what they're expected to do, like to be home for dinner, to let them know if they're not home for dinner, little things like that. They're not maybe as free and as flexible as you are and saying like, hey, it's Friday night, let's go grab dinner. And they're like, well, I already, it's just a few more steps, for them, a few more responsibilities that they have to go through before they can be as carefree. And they may look at that. That's another reason why they might look at an expat from afar and say like, oh, they're so carefree, really not free, but they're just more carefree with their time. And they may not have that. They've got more responsibilities. So that's another thing. And now where am I and what I'm talking about? Yeah, I'll have to rewatch the video and find out what I was talking about, but I got off on a tangent there as I do. I think it was, yeah, the book and approaching it the way you do, but just knowing to respect them, respect their culture, and be understanding and keep an open mind when they're telling you about this. Not immediately saying like, "Wow, I don't know how you could do that." I would, really, that would be so hard, But just being like, "Yeah, I get it, I understand." Listening, of course, and then learn more about them, and not try not to give up, because Hong Kong people are some of the most wonderful people. They're really some of the most wonderful, loyal, responsible, hardworking people. And I count myself lucky that I have friends of mine that are locals in Hong Kong. There may not be, I may not have 20, a big group of friends. But again, that's not really me anyway. So there is that. But I feel very lucky to have Hong Kong friends. So I hope this video may have shed some light, may help you, that if you're moving to Hong Kong or you're in Hong Kong and you're feeling frustrated and you want to learn more, I hope this helps. Okay, guys, I'm Sue Marguerite again. This is my little Cantonese corner. And if you're interested, this is the first video you're watching. I do have videos teaching Cantonese and mahjong. I have another video coming up on that. And what else do I do? Oh, like cultural conversations like this one. Okay. Take care, you guys. I hope everyone's staying safe and well. Again, we're into mid-April. I've been in the US since end of January, before Chinese New Year. Hoping to get back soon, and I'll let you know when I do. Take care, everybody. Bye. Hello, 大家好，我係 Marguerite, and welcome to my little Cantonese corner. 今日2020年4月, I totally forgot what day it is today. What's the date today?